Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome to Steelers Almighty Scouting Report for the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday. Got a noon kickoff. This is a really big divisional football game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, we got to get back on track. That was a dud in Cleveland. Even in the dud, we had an opportunity to win the game at the end and did not come through. So the Steelers got to get back on track. We know what our schedule looks like moving forward. We're literally in this tough stretch. We're right in the middle of it. So it's time to start putting some wins together, man. If we're going to be the type of team that not only us fans think that we can be, but also the Pittsburgh Steelers believe that they can be, this is a game you need to go win. I'm not saying it's a must-win game or anything like that. I think we're too early in the season for must-win games. But I do think it's important that we do go win the game. I know you might say, well, come on, Big B, you're contradicting yourself. No, what I'm saying is the Steelers don't have to win. And if they lose, their season's over. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying if the Steelers are trying to be the football team that they want to be, this is a game that you go win. There's a difference between the two. If we're trying to be a team that could win in the playoffs and make a deep run in the playoffs, then you got to be able to go to Cincinnati and win a football game. Period. End of story. That's what I'm talking about. And I think that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers got to be able to do here. So we're going to go over some stuff, break all this stuff down for you guys, man. I appreciate everybody. Look, I'm feeling better. I'm starting to sound a little better. Things are starting to come back around. So I appreciate y'all hanging in there with me, man. I really do. Let's break this thing down, man. Let's get to it. First thing first. The game, obviously, we're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. It's in Cincinnati. The Bengals are favored, -3 in this football game. And, you know, looking into it, that probably makes sense. Look, everybody, when you're at home, you always get 3. So basically what Vegas is telling us is this is kind of a pick 'em type of a football game because you always get 3 points being at home. And if there's only -3, then Vegas is saying this is a pick 'em football game. So that probably makes sense. The over-under on this is 46.5. I think it's going to go over on this one. I think there's going to be some points scored in this football game. The temperature or the weather, it's going to be cold. It is a noon kickoff, which helps. The game's not at night, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be, just because there might be some sunshine. I think it's going to be cloudy. I don't think it's going to be crazy wind, which is good, but it's going to be in the low 30s, at kickoff. So a typical, December day in Cincinnati, but nothing that the Steelers aren't used to. We understand that. I mean, we play in Pittsburgh, for crying out loud. So weather's not going to be a factor, man. Just not going to be a factor. Looking at some of the Bengals' offensive weapons, look, we know that the Bengals, it starts and stops with Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow, look, for some reason, people are, well, you can't win with Joe Burrow. And maybe you can't. I don't know. What I do know, Joe Burrow's having the best season that he has had as a professional. That's what's going on this year. The woes of the Cincinnati Bengals are not because Joe Burrow is playing bad, man. He's got 3,067 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He is not the reason that the Bengals have lost the games that they have lost. Okay? You can't put that on him. Even as a staunch Steelers fan that want to see him suck, you can't just go out there and be taken seriously if you're going to say Joe Burrow sucks. That is not the case, man. The guy's playing lights out football, but he's beatable. And they're beatable. That's all I'm going to say. They are beatable. Jamar Chase, obviously, top 3 receiver in the National Football League. You can make a case this year that he is the top receiver in football. 73 catches, 1,056 yards, 12 touchdowns. He's playing phenomenal. Him and Joe Burrow go hand in hand. He is literally lighting it up. Steelers are going to have their handful. Doesn't mean they can't stop him, but the Steelers are going to have their handful trying to slow down Jamar Chase. And then Chase Brown, came out of nowhere. It was supposed to be Zach Moss was going to be the guy. Chase Brown. Zach Moss gets hurt. Chase Brown steps up. Look, he's got 607 rushing yards on the season. He's averaging 4.3 yards a carry, which is pretty good. 5 touchdowns. He also has another 35 catches out of the backfield. So he has turned in to their workhorse in a situation where I don't think that the Bengals thought they were going to have. They thought it was going to be maybe by committee, or like I said, Zach Moss. Chase Brown has turned into. He's a really good running back. Steelers are going to have to be on their P's and Q's to be able to slow him down. On the defensive side for the Bengals, again, they got a game wrecker. I mean, Trey Hendrickson is a game wrecker. 11 and a half sacks. The guy has a crazy motor. He's a tactician when it comes to pass rushing. He bends. He gets guys. He knocks tackles hands down, lifts them up, gets you off of them. He doesn't take crazy wide pass rushes or anything. It's like he wants to get to the quarterback, and he wants to get there in as little, not effort, but he's not going to run around. He's just going to say, you know what? I'm a tactician. I'm going to come at you. I'm going to get your arms off of me quickly. I'm going to bend, dip my shoulder, and I'm going to get to the quarterback with as little steps as possible. Dan Moore, come on, man. This is your opportunity. You got embarrassed last week. And yes, the Steelers need to do a good job of helping you this week. Absolutely. But come on. If Dan Moore wants to get paid, ladies and gentlemen, here's his opportunity to go and get paid. Here is his opportunity. And I'm not even saying getting paid by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm just talking about in general. Dan Moore is about to become an undrafted or a unrestricted free agent after this season. You want to go get paid? Then you've got to go and win and go battle your butt off against Trey Hendrickson. And the Steelers need you to do that, by the way. We absolutely need you to do that. So, real big time matchup. Logan Wilson. Now, Logan Wilson's a little gimpy. We'll get into a little bit of injury. So, I don't know if he's going to play or not as we record this. You know, he hadn't practiced all week. They said he came up on the scouting report. They thought, or not the scouting report, but on the injury report, you know, they thought, oh, maybe he's just getting an extra day. No, he didn't practice. Didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday. So if he does practice, even limited participant on Friday, then I would say he goes. If he doesn't, I would say it's probably a game time decision for Logan Wilson. But as of right now, he's still one of the best tacklers on their football team. He's got 104 tackles, total tackles on the year. So really, really good football player. And then Cam Taylor-Britt, good cornerback, talks a lot of trash, but he's physical, and he's pretty good. Now, the Bengals defense isn't great, especially the secondary. It's not great, but he is a good football player on the back end for the Bengals there. Some of their free agent acquisitions hadn't really worked out. Now, Sheldon Rankins has been okay, but he's missed a couple of games. He's sick. I don't know if he's even going to play against the Steelers. Again, another guy that's out, hadn't practiced all week because of an illness. Trent Brown came in, and they brought him in to be the starter, and he had injury problems the last couple of years. He comes to the Bengals, gets hurt, out for the year. So that part just hasn't really worked out at all for them. Zach Moss, another one, thought he was going to come in. I don't know if the Bengals thought Zach Moss was going to be the bell cow and take over for Joe Mixon, but I think he was going to be, it was like he was going to have 65% of the touches from the running back position. But he got hurt, and Chase Brown has taken over for that. It's kind of the Wally Pipp situation. You get hurt, somebody comes in, they start playing well, and then boom, 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 you're relegated to second duty, and that's what's going on in Cincinnati right now. So some of their top draft picks. So Amarius Mims got hurt, was a backup, went in, got hurt. Now he's back. I don't know. Look, he's ultra talented. Steeler fans understand about Georgia tackles being ultra talented, but maybe not necessarily playing up to their capabilities. That's kind of what's going on with Mims right now. Just outstanding athlete for how big he is, but super, super raw. Just super raw. So what's going on there? It's not looking good. Steelers got an opportunity to take advantage there. Eric All, tight end, pretty good player. Again, I don't know if Cincinnati thought he was going to be as good as what he has been this season, but he is pretty good as far as a draft pick at the tight end position. I mentioned the injuries. Look, Steelers are getting a bunch of guys back. It's just a matter of, are they going to be activated for the game? You know, they've got pretty much everybody back, including Montravius Adams, who was limited practice the last couple of days, you know. So, and he told reporters, yeah, I'm playing. I'm good to go. So if he comes back, that is going to help the Steelers D line tremendously, especially the run defense. And he also can get a push in passing downs from the nose guard position. So I like that he's coming back. Corey Trice possibly coming back. The big one is Alex Highsmith. He practiced. It looks like he's on track to come back. So the Steelers got some guys that are going to be coming back for this football game that can help, that are absolutely going to help. And all those guys are on the defensive side of the football, which in a game against the Bengals, man, you need all hands on deck to be able to slow them down. All hands on deck on defense. So it's only going to help Pittsburgh getting these guys healthy and back. I mentioned the Bengals, Logan Wilson. Don't know. Um, if I was a betting man, I would say Logan Wilson is going to play. I would say he's going to play. Just he's going to take the time that he needs, rest up. He's a vet, good football player. He may not need to go out there. He's pretty familiar with the Steelers anyway. So I would bet he probably just doesn't have to go out there and practice a ton for them to be good. And then Sheldon Rankins, like I mentioned, with an illness. He missed last week, hadn't practiced this week. And maybe they're just saving him again. Another veteran, maybe he doesn't need to get out there. But if I was a betting man, I would say Wilson plays and Rankins doesn't. But we'll see what happens, man. We will see what happens on the injury front there. Let's go to the matchups. I mean, some weeks it's hard to come up with certain matchups. This one, this is not hard. What the Bengals do well, the Steelers defended well, and vice versa. What the Steelers do well on offense, the Bengals don't do well on defense. So this week, it wasn't hard to come up with these matchups. For instance, strength versus strength. The Pittsburgh Steelers scoring defense is third in the National Football League, 16.9 points per game. The Bengals scoring offense is sixth at 27 points a game. So can they stop them? We'll see. But that's basically what's going on between the two. Is the Steelers are they going to give up a whole bunch of points? And if they do, could be trouble. If the Bengals can't score a whole bunch of points, could be trouble for them. So I'm interested to see what goes on in that matchup. I think the Steelers got to be able to try to hold them down and can't let them get to 27 points because we know some of the limitations that Pittsburgh has on offense getting to 27 points. But I do have some little predictors down the road here for you guys on what the score is going to be. So make sure you stick around for all of that. As far as the Pittsburgh Steelers' strength versus the Cincinnati weakness, this one's pretty obvious. Look, I'm not saying the Steelers' run game is just phenomenal, but it is eighth in the National Football League. It's at 135 yards a game. The Bengals' rush defense is 20th. They give up 130 yards a game. Now, I know some will think, oh, well, it's about the same. It's pretty even. If the Steelers are running the football the way they want to run the football, and they're just going up and I shouldn't say up and down the field, but if they're just running it like they want to run it, they'll have more than 135 yards against the Bengals. The Bengals don't put up a ton of resistance on anything, pass, rush, whatever. We know the Steelers are run oriented. So if the Steelers are able to establish that football run or running the football, I should say, excuse me, it'll be more than 135 yards a game. And I think that's what they got to do. Look, they got a crazy good pass rusher. To eliminate some of that, you got to run the football. And I think the Steelers may be a little bit embarrassed about what happened in Cleveland when they tried to run the football. They got to get back to more of that. Just get back to power football on the road and run it and keep it away from the Bengals offense. Let your defense rest so they can be fresh and attack them. The way to do that, run the football. I think the Steelers have a huge advantage. I'll be honest there. Going to what the Pittsburgh Steelers struggle. The Steelers' weakness against the strength. Look, I mean, Steelers' pass defense, man, is 17th in the National Football League. It's giving up 215 yards a game. The Bengals' passing offense, it's first, 263 yards a game. So, I mean, the Steelers have to be able to cover up Jamar Chase. They have to be able to get after Joe Burrow. And then also they got to be able to cover T. Higgins. T. Higgins is really, really good. You know, he's underrated in my opinion. Is he a top 10 wide receiver? No, but he's a top 20 wide receiver. I'm pretty confident in saying that. having said all that, they're both on the same team. Steelers going to have their hands full covering both of these guys, man. And Joe Burrow is about as accurate as it gets. And like I mentioned before, he is playing the best that he has played since he has been in the National Football League. Right now, Joe Burrow is playing that way. Steelers got to do some things. Mix up coverages, roll coverages. Don't just sit back in the two deep zone and let them pick us apart. You're not going to be able to do that with these guys because they will literally just pick you apart if you allow them to do that. So the Steelers got to mix some stuff up, bring some blitzes here and there, move TJ Watt around like we already mentioned, and get after the quarterback. But more importantly, they got to shut down what they're trying to do running the football. If they can do that, that will help in this weakness as far as what the Steelers have as a pass defense. Moving on to some of the matchups here. Now, I mentioned obviously the game is in Cincinnati, going to be cold, which is fine. As far as coaching is concerned, Mike Tomlin, better coach than Zach Taylor. There's a ton of Bengals fans that are just not real happy with Zach Taylor right now, and wouldn't mind if they went and got a new football coach next year. If things continue down this path, there's a lot of Bengals fans that want to see him be replaced. I don't know if that's smart or not. Knowing the Bengals' history with coaches, I don't think they're going to do that because, look, you've seen Marvin Lewis, who didn't win a playoff game, but he was there forever. And don't get me wrong, they got better under Marvin Lewis, but he was there forever without winning a playoff game. So I don't see the Bengals getting a new coach, but either way, Mike Tomlin is a better football coach, regardless of the blunders that Mike Tomlin had last week. Yes, he had blunders last week, but so did Zach Taylor. So the previous week that they played. So, but Mike Tomlin is definitely the better football coach there. The Steelers have dominated this series, man. They lead it 70-39 and won. The Steelers have won 3 of the last 5, including both meetings last year. This series goes back a long way. I mean, we've been division rivals or in the same division for a long time. Here's the thing. It's kind of like Cleveland. The Bengals consider the Steelers a rival, but as a Steeler fan, I've been a Steeler fan since the 70s, since I can remember football. I don't really remember Cincinnati just being a rival. I understand they're in our division, so I guess you could say technically they're a division rival, but I don't really look at the Bengals as being on equal footing as the Pittsburgh Steelers. Never have, and until proven otherwise, I'm not going to. So, Bengals fans, you can be as mad at me as you want. I just don't. Doesn't mean you're a bad football team. Doesn't mean I'm disrespecting you or anything like that. Or if you want to take it as disrespect, you can. I can live with that. But I'm just saying I don't look at the Bengals as being on equal footing as the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just don't. But again, we've dominated the series. As far as the rosters are concerned, this one was a tricky one for me. Almost went equal, but I don't really think that it is. Look, offensively, Cincinnati clearly has the better roster as far as skill positions, quarterback, receivers. I don't know necessarily about running back, but their running backs aren't horrible. So they definitely have the advantage there. Offensive line, as much as I and a lot of us Steeler fans complain about the offensive line, the Bengals would trade every single offensive lineman right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers if they could. Every single one. They would trade their entire offensive line with our offensive line right now. So that's where the difference comes in as far as rosters. It's like, yeah, you have a distinct advantage when it comes to your quarterback, both of your receivers, but not running back. No, you don't have the advantage there. But the Steelers have an advantage with the offensive line. Now you go to the defensive side of the football, you have Hendrickson. Hendrickson's not as good as TJ Watt, and Bengals fans, you know that. Again, I'm not saying that Hendrickson's a bad football player because he's not. He is a great, let me repeat, he is a great football player. But because you're great doesn't mean you're as good as TJ Watt, and he isn't. You go up and down that line, and then you start putting numbers on. The Steelers have the better defense. They have the better defensive players. So when you go to the overall roster, I'm going to give the slight edge to the Steelers. Again, you can say, Brian, you're crazy. There's no way. Take away the skill positions or give a huge advantage for the skill positions to the Bengals. Where else do the Bengals have an advantage? Like, where else on the roster do they have an advantage, including special teams. They don't have an advantage anywhere, which is why you give that slight advantage to the Steelers. Agree or disagree? You know, I'm going to tell you the truth. If somebody had a better roster than the Steelers, I always tell you, I just don't believe that the Bengals actually do when you break it down man for man, position by position. As far as the matchups go, I think the Steelers have better matchups on their side. Um, the problem is if the Bengals get rolling and the Steelers can't get a pass rush, it'll be a long day. It will be a long day because let's just call it what it is. The Bengals' offensive line is atrocious. It's not bad. It's not terrible. It is atrocious. And if they're able to, number one, run the football, number two, protect, then the Steelers are going to be in trouble. They are going to be in trouble because I just talked about Jamar Chase, Higgins, and Burrow being at the top of their game. It's going to be tough for us to slow them down anyway. But then we don't have a pass rush on top of that. Yeah, it's going to be almost impossible. So the Steelers got to continue to go and continue to get after the quarterback, stop the run. But I still believe, as far as the matchups are concerned, because again, you flip it to the other side of the football, the Steelers should be able to do what they want to on offense. As long as the offensive line comes to play. And again, I'm not saying that, look, the Steelers don't have a dominant offensive line, but if they come to play, then they should be able to do and move the ball and play a little keep away from the Bengals. And as long as they cash in with touchdowns and they get that daggone red zone and stop getting bogged down and kicking field goals, then they will be okay. So I give that slight advantage as far as the matchups, again, to the Steelers. So this is going to be a really good football game, people. It's going to be a really good football game. Again, it's one that the Pittsburgh Steelers have to go win. They need to, if they're going to be the type of football team that we want them to be, we think they can be, then they need to go on the road and win this tough divisional game. Because more than likely, you're going to have to go on the road in the playoffs and win a game, right? Well, if you do, then this is the ones you got to go win. And again, you could say, well, the Bengals aren't a playoff team. The Bengals, I've said this a million times, the Bengals scare me way more than what the Ravens do. They just do. The Bengals scare me more than what the Ravens do because of the weapons that the Bengals have on the outside. And the Bengals are not out of this thing either as far as getting into the playoffs. They're not out of it. So this could be a game where the Steelers knock them out of it. And if they do, okay, great. And that would be spectacular that we can do that. But they're definitely not out of the playoff picture as of yet. They're dangerous. They're ready. They're rested. It's at home. Steelers coming off of a bad football game, which is why I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers go to Cincinnati and get a crazy, crazy win, 27-23. Late sack. TJ Watt has a great day, gets a late sack, ends the football game. Steelers win it in Cincinnati, 27-23, man. That's just the feeling that I have. I think the Steelers are going to play a little bit of desperate football. Doesn't mean they're a desperate team, but sometimes you play better when you play desperate football. And I think that's what they're going to come out, play loose, play aggressive. Hopefully, Mike Tomlin, come on, man, got to play aggressive. Can't play ultra conservative. Go after it and get a win on the road that they need to go get. So I appreciate all you guys, man. Again, all the support that you guys have given the channel of Steelers Almighty. If you haven't subscribed and you're new to the channel, make sure that you do. Continue to get in those comments, man. I love going with the back and forth. I try to get to as many of them as I can. So I appreciate all of that, man. Again, we will be here live 45 minutes before the Bengals game on Sunday. Make sure you tune in. And then 15 minutes after the game, we will be live again talking about exactly what we saw and hopefully a Pittsburgh Steelers victory. So make sure you guys jump in both of those lives, man. I appreciate that. Until then, we will talk to you guys soon. We love you and aloha.